Words of our fearless leader, our producer, Nuno. Hello! We got some power rankings. It's NFL Draft Edition. Teams that must draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of the NFL Draft, which kicks off next Thursday. All right, so teams that are teams that are desert thirsty for a quarterback. These are the top 5 teams that must draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of the NFL Draft. Let's kick this thing off, Jovante.
Number 5.
The New York Jets. This is one of those things where the owner has to step in. I know that the general manager and the head coach have burned the boats. They are pot committed to Aaron Rodgers. It's championship or bust. If they don't get to the playoffs and go on a deep run, then both Rob Saleh and Joe Douglas are going to be fired. So I get it. I understand where they're at as a team. But when you have the 10th overall pick in a quarterback-rich draft, it's absolutely a consideration. Now, the Jets don't have a second-round pick because of the Aaron Rodgers trade, but this is a scenario where they could trade down and pick up an offensive lineman or pick up a wide receiver, depending on what's still left on the board, and actually pick up more draft capital in this year's class. So I think that's something that the Jets have to strongly consider in round 2. If they're able to get a second-round pick by virtue of trading down, they have got to find a way to get a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of the NFL Draft, because there is no succession plan for Aaron Rodgers, and that doesn't put the franchise in a place where they're going to be very healthy, especially considering the young core of really talented players that they have.
You said something very key, because the general manager and the head coach are going to be in win-now mode, so that has to come from above them.
No doubt. No doubt. Next.
Number 4.
The Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, man, just look around. Read the room, Antonio Pierce. Like, AFC West, you got to deal with Patrick Mahomes, and you got to deal with Justin Herbert now that he's got Jim Harbaugh. Aiden O'Connell ain't going to get that done. Gardner Minshew, God bless him, put together a good season with the Colts, but he ain't it either. You got to find a franchise quarterback, and I don't know that you're going to use the number 13 overall pick to do it, but I certainly think there'll be opportunities for you in the back half of the first round to address it. Maybe move back in, mortgage some future draft capital, and take a run at a Michael Penix Jr. or a Bo Nix. I don't believe in Bo Nix, but if you have an opportunity to get back into the 20s or the low 30s to get a Michael Penix Jr., then they absolutely should do that. I'm not going to completely rule out the Las Vegas Raiders making a run to the number 3 overall pick just because of the history that Antonio Pierce has with Jaden Daniels. He coached him in high school, coached him at Arizona State. I do think that's a possibility if he's still on the board when the Patriots are on the clock next Thursday night. But the Raiders absolutely have to come away with the quarterback in the first 2 rounds next week. Next.
Number 3.
The Minnesota Vikings. We know what time it is. They made the move, did the dance with the Houston Texans to procure a second first-round pick, and they've been talking about moving up the draft board, getting inside of the top 10, maybe even the top 5 to try to get one of these elite quarterback prospects. I would be shocked if they go into the year knowing that Sam Darnold is going to be the QB number 1 without any competition from a rookie. They absolutely have to come away with a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. When they let Kirk Cousins walk out of the door, they pigeonholed themselves into this path of being able to get a quarterback early in the NFL Draft. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, their general manager, Kevin O'Connell, their head coach, they have to find a way to be able to pull off this move.
They're the most obvious one, right? Like, if they don't have a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, I think we'd all be stunned.
Yeah.
They're up there with, like, the top 3 picks in the draft in terms of how obvious it is that they need a quarterback right now.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that what they had last year between Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and the rookie, Jaron Hall, that ain't it. They ain't got it. So they need to find it in this NFL Draft.
Yeah, but you're number 5. Team that you had, the Jets, would have dreamt to have that quarterback depth chart last year.
That's a great
point.
Think about that. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Jovante, if you would.
Number 2.
The Washington Commanders, they got the 2nd overall pick. They're taking a quarterback. Forget about this nonsense about the Commanders trading out of the number 2 pick. They ain't going to do that, right? They got to take advantage of this. They stockpiled on the defensive side of the ball this offseason, brought in a lot of lieutenants for Dan Quinn. I think they're going to be much improved in that area. But the only way that they're going to get better on offense is if they get a true difference maker at quarterback. Now, Sam Howell had a fine season, But, I mean, Sam Howell was limited in terms of the physical tools. No matter who they take, whether it's Jaden Daniels or Drake May, the offense will have so much more upside because that quarterback under center will have so much more talent than what they've had in recent years. So they have to take a quarterback. I mean, think about it. They got the weapons in place. They got Terry McLaurin. They got Jahan Dotson. They got Logan Thomas. They got some weapons in place for a young quarterback to work with. They just got to get the quarterback. And that's why I think the new general manager with new ownership in the town, they're looking to make a splash after year one, and the splash is the quarterback. Make no mistake about it. But there can only be one team in the NFL that is desert thirsty for a quarterback, and that is
number 1.
The Chicago Bears. Right? Like, they're still searching for a quarterback post Sid Luckman. Like, they haven't had a quarterback since they were wearing leather helmets in the NFL. Like the Chicago Bears have had so many swings and misses on quarterbacks. I mean, go back to 1999, you had Cade McCown. Then you had Rex Grossman. Then you had Mitch Trubisky. Then you had Justin Fields. Like, they've got to find one of these guys when they have these first-round picks. They passed on the crop of quarterbacks last year, and guess what? It cost them an opportunity to get C.J. Stroud. They absolutely have to nail this pick, and we know that it's going to be Caleb Williams, but they got to make sure that they do everything that they can to properly support him. So that's the list. Power rankings of teams that must draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft, which kicks off next week. Number 1, the Chicago Bears. Number 2, the Washington Commanders. Number 3, the Minnesota Vikings. Number 4, the Las Vegas Raiders. Number 5, the New York Jets. Smalls, you are my accountability partner. Any objections, any omissions?
Love the list, CC. Bears, Commanders and Vikings are obvious selections. I love the idea of the Raiders getting a quarterback so that Antonio Pierce and his new franchise quarterback could ascend and grow at the same time. And the Jets absolutely should draft a quarterback. You have a quarterback in his 40s coming off an Achilles injury in Aaron Rodgers, who's also really unpredictable. You really never know what's going to happen with that situation. And I think that they should have an eye towards the future because you know that this situation with Aaron Rodgers is not going to last long.
NBA playoffs tonight, ESPN Radio. Tune in to Play in Action. Heat and the Bulls, followed by the Kings and the Pelicans, presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations and on SiriusXM Channel 80. All right, coming up, the Dallas
possibilities. But if you're Elliott Wolf, you've got to entertain all of them because your roster needs so much help.
I understand that, but the way I look at it is if Drake May is available and he is as good as you have scouted him to be, he is the ultimate Joe Malone cologne, and he's going to make you smell good at all times. He's going to make up for, the left tackle's a B, not an A. The wide receivers are a B, not an A. Like, quarterback solves all. It just does, and I get the idea.
Yeah, but you don't want the guy to get cut in half like we saw with Joe
But he's not going to play. That's actually the beauty of this with New England is because of the who, because it's Brissett. Honestly, it could
that might be fair. That might be fair.
Because they know him. He's been there before. This is a guy that at Dwyer High School in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, when Jacoby Brissett was there, you know who was sitting there next to him? I know you know the answer to this, Canty. Mm-hmm. Bill Parcells was going to his high school practices with him. He vouched for him with Belichick. And this is the ultimate character guy to sit there and train Drake May. It's perfect.
Can I ask you a question? Would you feel the same way if it was Jaden Daniels?
Well, yeah, I feel with Jacoby.
No, I'm saying, if Jaden Daniels goes number 3.
Well, here's the thing. You don't think as highly of Jaden Daniels as you do of Drake May.
I think there are some concerns with Jaden Daniels in terms of his overall durability. His stature scares the hell out of me. This is a big man's league.
But you also don't like McCarthy. So if Williams and May are off the board, let's do it this way. So my opinion with your scouting on this, so to speak, right? Smalls, tell me if this makes sense. Quickly here. We have the idea of Williams and May off the board. Mm-hmm. If you take what Cece has said, that Daniels ain't close to May and Williams, and McCarthy is way down even below Penix, they're not going to take Penix at 3. That's when you could trade out in that spot.
Yeah, exactly. And you still get a quarterback, and a quarterback that was very good in college, if the medicals clear out and you feel comfortable with him, and you get more draft capital to continue to build the team. Evan, as a Patriots fan, if they were able to do that, trade out of number 3, get what the Vikings are reportedly willing to offer them that we've discussed, those 2 picks this year in the first round and an additional first rounder, and they get somebody like Michael Penix Jr., how would you feel about that?
Well, that's a nice scenario. If you're again, I'm just going.
Yeah,
CC's watched these guys more than I have.
You could draft a tackle at 11, another tackle,
and Penix at 23.
You could take Penix at 23.
Yeah,
and you pick up another first round pick at 2025 for your trouble.
I don't like that he's a lefty, but nonetheless.
Oh my God!